and anybody who has tried to change things in schools, it's very hard because there is a strong feeling of that. So we're in isolation. It's a solo craft. And yet, who would want to go to a lawyer, if you have a serious case, who would not collaborate with someone else to help prepare the defense? Even the Army, you know, one of our most, we think of it as a very traditional, almost regressive institution. They've changed the whole Army around. Everybody collaborates. And we all know car makers. I won't go into that in this current economy. But the reason there's so little accountability for teachers is because of the isolation. Isolation is directly against any accountability. And I have talked to some of you here, and you will recognize the story. And it's not just what each of you will say, oh, she's talking about me. And it's not even true, because I'm talking about a number of you who have commented about the so-called teacher next door, or another teacher who doesn't know what you have learned and maybe wasn't prepared in the same way and so on, and is not being successful with his or her kids. And yet, who am I to be able to go there? The autonomy of so-called autonomy of teaching, which defeats any attempt at leadership, at changing what's happening. So, we pretend that all teachers are the same. Many parents, for those of you who are parents who have ever gone to a school and said, I'd like my kid to have that teacher, the knee-jerk response from a principal or a head of school is, all our third grade teachers are perfect for your child. It's such an insult to every one of those third grade teachers, because maybe you are actually a better match for my child, because there are things you do that I know about, and I do know my child as a parent that could benefit. So as long as we're all the same, and I'm not talking, you know, and private schools are different, independent schools, the salary scale often is a merit piece, and it's not that I'm against or pro it, but it doesn't change this idea of egalitarianism, that people know more than other people. It's okay. And in fact, if Sarah, having taught 6 years, doesn't know more than Alicia, having taught 1 year, it's chaval on her own learning. Like, what have you been doing for the 6 years? And yet, the job on the day of retirement is exactly the same as your job on your first day in the classroom. That's the expectations. You are up and running. Lawyers would love to have the difficult cases on the first day. They don't get the difficult cases. They get the scut work. They have to work towards it. And with us, no career ladder, right? The career ladder is up and out. That's what DELIT, the L in DELIT, is trying to affect. This idea of how can you be a leader and be a teacher? Because to leave the classroom, I'm somebody who stayed in the classroom for 30 years. I could not bear to leave the classroom. It is the best job in the world, is being with the kids. But there needs to be other pieces. So I began to do part-time teaching real kids who said, you know, I was their real teacher, and teaching at the university, or developing curriculum, or whatever, different kinds of things. And but to be grounded in the classroom, I mean, now I feel much less authentic than when I was I had stories from that day of that kid. That's where it's at. That's the power of real professional development, people who are really doing the work. So, I want you to think about the work you just did and the kinds of professional development, actually wherever you are on the continuum. I don't know what happens during Teachers Week, so I'm not sure, and I don't know about the curriculum training, and I don't know about the PD days. But things that you all spoke about, these one-shot workshops, as opposed to the sustained, ongoing deliberations. That's the power. I was doing examining student work, which is a really lovely way for people to collaborate, and yet you have to reveal yourself if you're going to use your own student work, and people are going to say, oh my God, that's what she does in 4th grade, she thinks that's okay, and then you feel like, huh. But the best part of it was when a new teacher said, oh, you mean you've been teaching, not really you, for 22 years and you still have those questions about your work? That's what we have to make our schools. Teachers have to learn as much every day in school as the kids do. And I had a discussion with one of you the other day about what it is about teaching that makes it intellectual work, even if you're teaching 3rd grade for the 9th year. To me, it's enormously intellectual. Because brain surgery is a piece of cake. You know, everybody's brain looks the same. And they all know where the things are. Maybe some of the whatevers are bigger than the other whatevers. However, basically, people's brains are similar. And you learn from a model brain, and then you do it on, and so on and so on. Well, that sure ain't true about the kids in your class. They are not the same. There is much more diversity among the learning brains than the physical brain. It is incredibly intellectual work. And I'm not big on this outside expert coming in, because I think that the power that you have, every one of you, in your own school, and not only the Delets, there are other people also in your school. And somebody said yesterday, oh, maybe it was Meg, said yesterday in the teacher leadership session that she waited for a while before she spoke because she wanted to listen to the veteran teachers, because she felt they've been there for a long time. Maybe they have something to say. I think the ideal school culture, and there's a lot written about this, is an integrated culture. This is about integrating experience. That when new teachers, with the kind of energy that you bring to schools, which veteran teachers desperately need, and cutting edge ideas that you've learned and all of that, and that put together with an experienced teacher who actually knows something also, even though they might not do, you know, understanding by design or this or that that you've just learned as holy work. You know, it's not. They also have something to say. So it is to have those opportunities to work together. The focus needs to be on learning. Vivian Paley says, teaching is listening and learning is speaking. That is so profound. Certainly, as a new teacher, the biggest thing is, what am I going to say next? It's not like I don't understand that. I so understand that. But once you get beyond what am I going to say next, listening to your students is the way to learn. And I think that it is very hard for most of us to learn in isolation. And very few professions are, the top mathematicians are now, who have always worked in isolation, are now finding the need to actually do some collaboration. What I would really say is we have to hold each other accountable for results. I think one of the issues in schools is that it's my kids, right? My 4th graders. Does that mean that the other 4th graders, or what about the 3rd graders, or the 2nd graders, or the 6th graders? They're not mine? And I think we think about that a lot in schools, and I think it does us in. Like so many of our cultural, that's the old assembly line. You have to remember that, right? It's my piece. I add my piece. That's not the role of the teacher. That's the role of the assembly line teacher, right? There's no B students. There's only B teachers. It's like, what can we do? And I don't think we can do it alone. I think it's so hard. I think it's the most difficult thing to do. That's why I think we have to do it collaboratively. And then we have to hold others accountable. Because if the teacher next door is not doing it, and I know it, and I'm silent, well, Jews know a lot about silence. We don't have the right to be silent. We never have the right to be silent about anything, about any injustice. And I think as Jews, ad kama v'chama, we have to be less silent. You can't change schools around the edges. You have to change schools in the middle. It's about the school day.